Hi, it's Stephanie Pruitt. It is day 19 of 30 by 30 by 30, where I'm writing 30 poems in 30 days in relation to works in the 30 Americans exhibit at the Frisk Center in my hometown of Nashville. Day 19, and I drafted a poem in relation to Robert Colescott's Pygmalion. Colescott was born in 1925 in Oakland, California. He passed away in Tucson, Arizona in 2009. Pygmalion was created in 1987, and it is acrylic on canvas. It's a really wild, interesting scene with a lot of different people of varying sizes and scales. Like, they're all obviously together on this single canvas, but it's an interesting decision that I think the viewer makes as to, are all of these people together in one physical space, or are they more brought together on the canvas because they're part of like the mindscape or the mental landscape of the artist's mind? Some of them, the scale, like I said, their faces are much larger than others. Some are kind of in the foreground, center part. There's a sculpture. There's like a black version of Venus de Milo, a black version of Mona Lisa. There are men and women, some dancing together. There's a woman sitting like under a dryer with rollers, and a man kind of sitting at her knees or kind of looking up to her on his knees. And there's a couple in the kind of central part of the image dancing, what looks like a white man and a black woman. And there's just a lot of interesting, wild, kind of trippy things going on in this image. It's not abstract, but it's also not quite a realistic image. I don't know, I'm not sure how to describe it. It makes me think of a dream, kind of a dream place. Like, where would you see all of these types of people together? And that's kind of where I started my poem. Where could I possibly imagine seeing all of these figures in one space? So again, Pygmalion. This is inspired in relation to Pygmalion by Robert Colescott. Where but Harlem could such a scene occur? The obscure and demure all sloshing in the same punch bowl. Venus de Milo and old Vanessa from B2 equally ogled, danced, and wooed. But beware, these mirrors, a fun house of sorts, reflecting a rainbow on what we know is truly monochrome. Reading that out loud, I'm even more interested in it. I immediately thought of kind of the Harlem Renaissance era, 1920s, and the salon style gatherings and, rent parties that would happen in flats where, white people would come from other areas into Harlem, and you would see this mixing of people from various professions and economic backgrounds all partying together, and just this real mesh of bodies and mesh of people and ideas, focused quite often around art and social consciousness and awareness and ideas and whatnot. So really interesting. I'm interested in these kind of constructed settings that end up being watering holes and gathering places for a lot of different people, and thinking about what comes out of those spaces. And also what happens when you enter such a diverse, amazing kind of charge, like electrically charged space of creativity. And then what happens when you go back to your own corners of the world and our everyday lives that aren't so electric and charged, and this range of interesting people and places. And part of why I guess I'm thinking about this, my husband and I love to entertain. We have get-togethers at our house all the time, just casual, miscellaneous get-togethers. We have a couple of kind of regular events that we do every few months. And the thing that we really enjoy is like consciously curating our guests and thinking about who's going to be there, who might have met, who might not have met, and trying to make it a really relaxed but interesting, odd group of people. Like, where else in Nashville will you see this whole group of people together? And we love that mix and that range, but we also are very aware of the constructed nature of it, and how sometimes we create these really interesting, seemingly magical encounters of moments, and we hope that they sustain themselves into real connections and relationships, but we know realistically 95% of our interactions are kind of in the same circles with the same people. And I just wonder how other than in our dreams and in these kind of constructed spaces like this painting, how do we really connect with other people? I don't know. I see it happening around art, sort of, but then I also see these deeply entrenched circles and silos. And I mean, sometimes I ask myself, why do I want to bust those up? Why do I want to, move around with different people? And part of it is just, I get bored. I won't say I get bored easily. I don't allow myself to get bored. Like, I can always find something that interests me, but it gets harder and harder to be constantly interested and stimulated if you're in the same place all the time, the same people, the same style and way of being. So maybe part of why I don't get bored very often is because I do push myself to go into different places with different groups, and that's part of what keeps me going. But that can sometimes, I don't know, I don't even know what my big question is or my big point, but that painting just made me think about these constructed social settings where all these different types of people from different places are mixing, and how I really love those most of the time. Most of the time I do. There's some times where I want to be around people who just kind of get it and speak the same language, and a lot can go unsaid, because part of the challenge of these really charged, electric, diverse groups is that we're often kind of coming from different ways of being and talking, and me saying, oh girl, shut up and sit down. For some people that's offensive. For other people that's just like a casual whatever, so like knowing the language, knowing the idioms, knowing all that good stuff can take a minute when you are with a wide swath or a wide range of people. But I do believe it's worth it. And this is no commercial for like the Rainbow Coalition, and and I hope that no one is listening to this thinking of diversity as this simple black and white thing, because that's not it at all. I think some of the funniest gatherings that I've loved to just like sit back, literally sometimes at these big swanky social things, I love to just sit on the edges of the room and watch, the high society black people with old money, and they've been somewhere for generations, to see them in the same room as the newcomers who, have just been in a city for like 20 or 30 years versus, 70 or 80 years, and just see how those dynamics play out. It's fun, not in a funny and like game-like way, but stimulating, I should say, to watch the diversity among people who look alike. So let's not simplify diversity in terms of skin color, diversity of thought, diversity of all these other things. But, then honestly, I will also say there are times where I just want to be around people who kind of get me, and we think alike, we've had a lot of the same experiences, and sometimes that's just easier. That doesn't make it okay to do all the time, but I will admit that sometimes it is just easier, but it can get boring and like blah, 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 like a pancake with no syrup. Unless they're my pancakes, which are really tasty without syrup, because I make some of the best pancakes ever. But that's just me saying it. Actually, that's not true. Other people have told me that. That doesn't make it true just because other people have said it, but blah, 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 blah. Okay, what else is going on that I can tell you about today? The gallery was really quiet when I got here. I got here right when it opened at 10 a.m., so I'm sure it picked up over the day. But I am noticing that I tend to write a bit more quickly, and more ideas come to me the more people are in the gallery. So it's like I push myself to focus when there's more sound and movement and people kind of all around me, whereas when it's just me, I actually get a little more easily distracted. And I'm just kind of paying attention to that process in my way of writing, and observing some really interesting things about myself and my writing ways, which is really half the battle, I think, as an artist, when you know your process and figure out what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and you're constantly willing to try new things based off of that knowledge of your own creative self and creative ways. That's cool. All right, y'all, today is the 19th day? 18th, 19th? I need to remember, but I do know that today's the 14th, so tomorrow you'll see the 15 sticker. All right, take care.